Perfect. So yeah, thanks for joining today, everybody. Today's the topic of today's session is TeamsLink, a great product made better. This is a combination webinar between Wavenet and Inti. Wavenet are one of Inti's strategic telephony partners, specializing in Teams telephony. So my name is Mike Korkadakis, and I'm the head of distribution here at Wavenet. My primary role within Wavenet is working with our distributing partners like Inti to help them take our key TeamsLink product to market and helping them with all things Teams voice. We're going to cover quite a few different things in today's session. A big sort of starting point that we like to sort of start with and cover off is sort of why TeamsLink versus Microsoft Business Voice. So to make that sort of clear, obviously Microsoft do heavily promote the partner channel, and they do promote the partner channel for a good few reasons when it comes to the voice part of Teams. Yes, you can get Teams voice with Microsoft directly, but what a lot of people don't realize is the Microsoft Business Voice product, the telephony side of that, is actually not delivered by Microsoft. So Microsoft do have strategic partners in every different geography of the world. In the UK, as an example, that network is Colt, and that's what they use to deliver the telephony side of Teams. So Microsoft really heavily promote trying to get people using Teams and, of course, using the telephony within Teams, but they do actually look to partners like ourselves that are kind of that more sort of strategic telephony focused partner, and they open up APIs to do things to allow us to do different types of integrations to just further enhance the product. So it is truly sort of taking that, great product and just making that just slightly better. So the way we start sort of all the explanations and sort of all the sort of comparisons is just going through this particular chart just to sort of highlight some of the key differences between a product like TeamLink versus that Microsoft Business Voice product. And whilst we do this, I'll cover off a few different things that you'll be able to see and visualize across the term of this sort of webinar. So as a starting point, it's just simply the way we tariff the product. So, I do appreciate that the minutes that are included in Microsoft Business Voice are still quite substantial, but we just do tariff unlimited just for sake of ease and make things quite simplistic to calculate that, total cost of ownership and total cost on a per user basis. For our product, your numbers do need to be ported in, but of course we do support all number ports, so you don't have to worry about losing your numbers. There are some potential limitations to that with Microsoft, but that has massively expanded. So either way, you're typically quite safe in keeping your numbers. We do provide, UK DDIs in all of the major geographies, as does Microsoft really. A big plus for us is the international piece. So because we are that sort of telephony-focused provider, we do currently provide international DDIs in 60 plus countries. Microsoft have just branched out to sort of 33, but it does mean that we have a little bit more support worldwide internationally. And that does include having data centers and breakout points in different parts of the world to support things like in-country dialing and, outbound in-country dialing, and obviously local breakout points. So not all the traffic has to route all the way back to the UK and outwards. So we do support all of that. Both products support a lot of the sort of the standard features you'd expect to see in a phone system. Things like your ring groups, your follow the sun routing, having the ability to add in auto attendance or music on hold and call queues. All of that stuff is included in both products. We do offer, in our admin center, which I'll show you shortly, the ability to do things like visual call routing. The Microsoft Admin Center can be a little bit more complex. Sometimes there's even some PowerShell experience needed. So we do just have a little bit more of a simplistic way, that sort of traditional telephony sort of mentality way to sort of set up your call routes, which I'll show you shortly. Advanced disaster recovery, that is a big one. That's why organizations like Inti do promote our product as well, and very much focus it to the sort of the MSP world. And that's just because of the infrastructure that we have set up with our product. So as I already mentioned, Microsoft Business Voice is delivered over whatever network they're using in that local geography. So in the UK, that being Colt. It does mean that the entire telephony infrastructure is heavily reliant on that network. If there is an outage in that network, if Microsoft Teams has an outage, then obviously your telephony product would be impacted. The way we've structured our product is it is a multi-tenanted infrastructure, but it does mean that we have multiple tier 1 carriers plugged into each of our data centers and any of our local breakout points. So in the UK, we do have multiple tier one carriers that are built into our infrastructure. So if Colt had an outage, as an example, we could fall back to any of the other, any of the other tier one carriers that we have built in to our environment. So it just means that it's a little bit more robust and a little bit more redundant. It also means that because the call traffic goes through that environment, if Teams itself did go down, then you can use obviously the disaster recovery elements and the templates that you've had set up to reroute your call traffic elsewhere, whether that's maybe potentially soft phones or just simply mobile devices. But it does mean that we do have options there to control that disaster recovery, which is absolutely vital and quite key. And that's just where Microsoft do rely on organizations like us that have those sorts of infrastructures and that telephony focus to deliver those sorts of things. In our Pro product, we do have skill-based routing, which just allows you to obviously set skill levels for particular agents, just in a very basic Teams product. So obviously we do have some more advanced contact center solutions, which I'll touch on shortly as well, but it does mean that you do have that stuff built in as well. The next one is Power BI reporting. So both products have the option to obviously manage all your call traffic and do reports on all of the traffic that comes into your Microsoft telephony solution. But the difference with ours is we do that and deliver that over a live sort of data feed. And with that includes multiple Power BI templates that we've built and that we keep updated for you. So because Microsoft doesn't own the telephony element, sometimes there is a delay in getting that information. So we have found that organizations that might want to monitor certain call traffic, then sometimes business voice isn't the right solution for them because they're not able to get that information immediately. So that's something that we've addressed, and that's something that we have included in the product. And actually, I'm going to start by just bringing over some of the Power BI templates just to run through those quickly to sort of show what I mean by that. So we have these templates developed, we're constantly making changes, and this is all delivered on a live data feed. So all you need is the Power BI desktop viewer, which is free, and we provide these templates inclusive in the product. And what these templates do is there's a whole bunch of them. I won't go into all of them in detail, but it just gives you the summary of the information that you would expect to see and be able to export out of your phone system. So things like, user call summary, which gives you, the calls per day, the total user calls, and the duration of time spent on calls. And obviously, because this is delivered over Power BI, you have the option to click in and generate more detail. You have the option to do things like filter by date ranges, and then obviously set things up by different users and different criteria. But there's a whole bunch of reports here that just allow you to get this information however you want. The amount of time spent on external versus inbound, and external calls, inbound, outbound, the total talk time, standard information that you might want to see. As you go down, this will give you the same sort of statistics for outbound calls if you want to monitor outbound calls that are being made. Who are they from? Is it to PSTN? Is it to, an internal user? You have the ability to see all this levels of information. Things like user lists, you can monitor all your users, see how many agents you have in particular queues, how many regular users you have, just a highlight of that sort of information. Your usage on your per user basis. So, usage per user outbound, usage per user inbound. So you get a full view of what your users are doing in terms of call traffic. Then there's some very interesting reports on here. So things like your inbound PSTN and outbound PSTN calls. What this actually does is actually highlight things with a heat map. So if you're running things like, let's say, a potential marketing campaign, this will actually highlight the areas where inbound, or if you're making outbound calls, where most of that traffic is coming from. It'll give you the heat maps, and it gives you the level of detail broken down, by area codes, by countries, specific parts of the country. This will actually give you the heat map to give you that level of information. So very handy stuff to have with you all the time. Of course, things like a missed call report. This is obviously vital for a lot of organizations. If you are missing calls, you want to see who missed them, and then of course the detail that's behind that, who that call was, so you have the opportunity to make callbacks should you need to do that. And there's all kinds of getting into more sort of contact center sort of basic reports that do exist in here. So looking at your ring group stats, the total amount of calls that were offered through a particular ring group, the total that were answered, the total that were ignored during that period of time. And of course, you can filter this by your particular users as well. And then if I go further down, you're getting into things like your actual call summaries as well, which gives you some, active dashboard, how many were answered, how many were abandoned, how many went to voicemail through your particular ring groups there. So there's a lot of level of information that you have. You can look at your queued calls, so things that come through a call queue, and this will even give you things like, how many rings before a call was answered, what the total amount of calls that were offered in that period were, how many times that call was offered, how many were answered in, whatever, ring sequence you want to set, maybe 3 rings or whatever maybe you might target your individuals on. So you have all this information that is made readily available for you, and this is not something that you can get out of the Microsoft infrastructure. So there's a lot of level of detail here. Like I said, I won't go into all of them, but you see all various different reports here that you can see. You can even get into a little bit more sort of granular into, things like agent performance here, where it's, the amount of calls offered, on a day-by-day basis, the total call opportunities, how many calls were offered, the answer percentage, all the various different detail here that you do have is made readily available for you, and this is all delivered over our live link, and inclusive in our product as well. So if I just revert back to this quickly and just to highlight a few other things on here, it's just moving into some of the advanced sort of add-ons, and this is where we've made a lot of sort of contributions and a lot of changes to the product, some of which I'll highlight shortly, which just give you a nice sort of overview of some of the things we do. So group voicemail is included in both products. That just means if you do have like a call group or a ring group or something that's going to terminate to a group of users, it just means every one of those users gets that notification, the group voicemail. Moving down the list, we do offer some big things that you can't get included in Microsoft Business Voice. So things like the ability to integrate an address book. We do have the ability to do that if you have maybe like a SQL database somewhere and you're not using a CRM system that you want integrated, but you have an address book somewhere. We do have the facilities to integrate those into your Teams client as well. Offering things like all the way up to MiFID II and FCA compliant call recording. So we do offer call recording in the solution, always on call recording at all various different retention levels, so 30-day, 90-day, all the way up to that full FCA MiFID II compliant call recording storage, 7-year storage and security storage to make sure that you tick that compliant box. And that's something that you can't get with Microsoft Business Voice directly. With that come a few sort of unique features that, again, you can't get with Microsoft directly, and these are things that we add on as additionals. So things like the ability to do manual pause and resume in the basic product for compliance. This isn't talking about some of the more advanced contact center stuff we do. This is just in the base level sort of product. The ability to do things like live listen. That's something that not a lot of other organizations can do on Teams. But if you do want the functionality to be able to live listen onto calls, then you can actually do that as well. We do also have some supervisor licenses and dashboards and those sorts of things, which I'm going to show you in a moment, as well as some of the stuff I'm going to touch on after I just do a quick sort of portal demonstration will be the further integrations of some of the sort of full contact centers and omni-channel contact center stuff that we do deliver with the product also. So the next bit I just want to do is, if I just go forward one slide, gives me a nice sort of TeamsLink live demo. So what I want to do is just pull across the TeamsLink portal and just go through a few things in the TeamsLink portal to show you this. So essentially, this is the hub for any user that's going to be managing the actual phone system. So the thing about the portal is not everybody in the organization is going to see this. This is simply going to be for the people that are either supporting a customer or using it internally. But this is basically the hub for how you manage your phone system. So you can see here, it's quite simplistic. There's some quick links to do some certain things on the main screen, things like check the service health, any potential support articles, subscribe to platform updates and those sorts of things in here. But what you will see, the most common tab and the most important tab is the setup tab. Through the setup tab, this is where you have all the various different options of things you can do with the product. So, if you look at it as a starting point, just moving through the list, so things like in your security groups, you want to be able to set access to the portal for particular users, maybe team managers that you want to be able to access some of the Power BI reports, or maybe make particular changes to certain call routes, but not have access to anything. You do have the ability to set that in security groups. It's here where you can just simply do things like set dial policies if you want to restrict access to certain numbers, certain destinations, and those sorts of things. This is where you can do that really simplistically by just clicking through them. So it's very easy to do that. You can manage all various different things here. Your media tab, this will be for any of the media that you want to upload into the product, for your auto attendants, your IVRs, your voicemails. You can just simply upload those files. It's typically sort of like a WAV or an MPEG or an MP3. You can obviously just add these things into the portal simply by uploading the file, and all that stuff is used later and when you're setting up your call routes. You can see all various different things here. The ability to add in external numbers if you want to make calls to external numbers. You can manage your outbound CLIs. So if you want to change, in a product like this, every user has a DDI, but you might want to present a main office number rather than their DDI. You can do that by masking the outbound CLI on here. You can manage multiple domains in the portal as well. You can do things like check your call routes. When I mentioned the visual call routing manager, this is what I meant previously. So this routing manager is very visual and very easy to set up. Even people that aren't overly technical can get a view for what this is and how this works. So you can see that if somebody calls this number, it hits what's called a time condition. So in this particular time condition, it's weekday, so Monday to Friday, 7 a.m. till 6 p.m. So if calls come through that, during that time period, it hits a main menu, which is an IVR, which will be one of the recordings you've uploaded. You have the option for public holidays and where things route. You have out of hours as well. Maybe things route to an out of hours contact center or all those things. So you can set all this stuff up so it's completely automated and completely easy to use. And it is as simple as going in to the setup tab, clicking on a create a call route, and this is where it's a step-by-step process to create your call routes very visually and very easily. And this is something that's not available currently in the Microsoft infrastructure. So if I was to click through this, select a DDI, it is just simply a click-through process. Maybe you want to start with that time condition piece. So you're adding in the times of days, the days of the weeks in which where calls route. You can set all that in here. You want to add in things like an IVR. This will just pull from that media tab that you had uploaded media to earlier. So you can just simply add these in, and those form part of the call route. This is also where it routes through to how you get things to route to particular individuals. And you do that in one of two ways. There's ring groups or there's call queues. A ring group just simply means it will ring a group of users. So if I looked at this one, let's say I went to maybe sales as an example. So if this was to the sales team, I set the ring time for 20 seconds. It just simply means it rings all those users in that group for 20 seconds. The first person to answer that call connects it. Maybe then I want that to terminate to a voicemail. Or we also have the option of a call queue. And a call queue is it has what's called the skill-based routing element here. So this is where you can actually add in particular things, certain agent ring times, retry times, wrap-up times. And this is all stuff that's inclusive in the product, and that's commercially in line with Microsoft Business Voice, right? So this isn't adding in advanced contact center features. This is just stuff that's built into the product, and it allows you to select particular individuals and give them a skill level of 0 to 100. The higher the number, the higher the skill level. And then what that means is that if you look at this particular instance, the higher skilled agents means they receive calls first and then sequentially down in order. And there is a smart agent selection backend, which allows it that if you have a bunch of agents at the same skill level or different skill levels, allows that the ring through sequence to go to the person that's been most idle the longest. So there is options there, and it's very customizable. And again, something that you can't get in the Microsoft Business Voice product. So there's a lot of options there in terms of actually building out your call routes as well. Same goes for doing things like creating users. So you can simply create users in your organization as a click-through process, and there is an Active Directory sync tool. So when you do create a user in your Office 365 tenancy, it will pull across here automatically, allowing you to then just allocate the domain that you want to choose, the particular license that you want to give that user, allocate them a phone number, choose if you want to add them into the contact center or if you want to add call record into those users. And all the other detail will be there from your Active Directory and synced across. So it's very easy to set up a user ready to use outbound calling on Teams. The report element is all the stuff I kind of covered off in the Power BI already, but there is some basic contact center information built into the product here as well. So things like agent dashboards, allowing you to cycle this through different call queues of agents. You can see live incoming calls here if you want, and you can actually, as a supervisor, take people out of particular call queues that you might have them a part of. You can set them to busy, start a break for them, or log them out. And the same goes for some of the live and active wallboard stuff that you can have set that is here for you and ready to use. So this is all stuff, again, like I said, that's inclusive in the product. There's also the elements of the call recording portal. So this just gives you a nice sort of simplistic view of the call recordings. Everything is completely searchable by date range, from or to specific users in the organization. Just search by user if you want to look at call recordings for just a particular user, and you can obviously search by the date range. You can see here in the call recording portal, you have the option to just simply play that call recording, or you can do things like copy that URL. Maybe you need to export that call recording, send it to, a particular team manager, solicitor, or anything that you might need to export. You can just simply copy that URL, and then it's played on a WAV file. There's all various different things that you can do in the call recording portal that's bolted on. So we do have things like call transcription services available, which would then allow you to make searches by particular words or particular phrases, audit log functionality, the ability to capture screen share and the actual video content that's being shared as well. You can see all of that stuff included. You can see all the metadata markers for particular individuals joining conference calls, and you can just export specific parts of that sort of element of the conversation. In this particular instance, it gives you a bit of a demo of sort of when particular people joined the call, when people left the call, and you can actually see just exports from those particular instances when those things happened on those calls as well. So there's a lot of level of detail that can be captured in the call recording portal. And again, it all links to the main sort of admin center of the product and the setup tab, which covers, the whole suite of the actual solution as well. There's a few other things that we've recently added into the product as well that I just wanted to sort of briefly cover off just to give people an update on as well. So in the sort of the call recording area, that's an area of growth for us and a big focus where we're constantly making changes. One of the big ones is the ability to do, your PCI and DSS compliance, which is built into the actual Teams environment now in the Teams screen share. So not only is it just a manual pause and resume verbally, we also have the ability to actually, have your cardholder data environments, your CDEs stored in Teams using the agent pay apps, and you can do things like securely take card payments through these links as well. And this is all built into our product, and of course using the standard things like your DTMF suppression instead of voice and all those sorts of things, so you have the ability to see all of the stuff and your IVR assists and everything. Of course, linked into the call recording element and the big fact that we're doing a lot of stuff in Power BI, obviously we do have open APIs that allow you to export this data to not just Power BI if you are using other solutions, but with this, you can obviously build more intricate dashboards and the ability to export this stuff into, other solutions on top of just the standard call recording elements. So you can see here there's things like sentiment analysis. So you can build in reports for sentiment now. So it'll get, give you the sort of the moods of the calls, the happiness, the anger, the sadness, all those things. So we actually have the ability to have sentiment analysis built into the product as well now. So, your keyword search and alerts, so you can maybe have specific alerts that you want set if it's said on a particular call that gets flagged to supervisors. So these are all functions and features that exist in the product now as well. And then, of course, obviously, again, that sort of improving customer experience bit and the data that's used from the call recorder to set up your own customized dashboards and stuff like that as well. So again, this just touches more on the dashboard side, but this one's more focused on the customer experience, the end customer experience, not just you getting information out of the platform, but how people are interacting. And of course, a little bit more sort of contact center centric as well. So, dissatisfaction, escalations, apologies, confusion, all those sorts of things. You can, set the ratings for those, and you can customize all these dashboards through the call recording edition that we have built into the platform as well. I also mentioned the omni-channel contact center. So through our our partnership with Puzzle, we have now had the ability to have an interconnect with a true omni-channel contact center, which means for any of your organizations that are doing things like, a true contact center with, if you look at the contact center elements with voice, chat, email, social, SMS, and e-tasks, all this stuff can be built into our platform now with our Puzzle partnership, allowing, contact center users and Teams users to interact and to work together simultaneously and have visibility of both senses of information. So we do this in multiple ways. We have the contact center, we have the case management, and we do have obviously your workforce management as well, which allows things like your forecasting, your scheduling, your real-time adherence, and of course everything comes back to the fundamental of reporting. But we now, through the Puzzle partnership, have a whole host of integrations that we can work from, and any organization that has a true fully fledged contact center, we can support that, as well as your back office staff using Teams, maybe potentially your sales staff or different teams that don't need to have a fully fledged contact center, but they can work together in harmony and true collaboration. And of course, with this, we have a lot of integrations across a lot of sort of the major sort of solutions and systems that exist currently. And in this, you'll see a lot of sort of your socials, your CRM systems, your case management systems. But this is all the stuff that we have this sort of integration with currently. And of course, this is always expanding constantly as well. And one area where we're quite unique is this next bit. So I did mention that because Wavenet fully hosts our environment, it does allow us to have this voice and data interconnect with the omni-channel, which means that your users have the same experience going through that. So it means that, where we're quite different to other organizations that are just using, a separate contact center and then maybe potentially Teams, is there's no interoperability between those two. Whereas with our solution, a contact center user can still see the visibility of it of just a Teams user, and vice versa. So it just brings them all onto one platform, one, call route management system. It's all managed centrally through the portal, so you have those capabilities between the two products built in. And it just kind of covers all the various different types of customers, channels, self-service capabilities, and of course the knowledge that's there for the organization as well. So it just kind of covers absolutely every scope that you would expect to see there. The next kind of quick bit I just wanted to sort of touch on is obviously just kind of positioning the product when you're taking this out to sort of customers and partners, and how you want to position this. So a lot of things obviously are constantly changing in the world. Hybrid working has been, very much on top of us. These are a lot of statistics that come from Microsoft directly. So you can see here, these are some key sort of statistics over recent years and how much things have changed. So it just gives you an idea, sort of 46% of the workforce is planning to move because they can now work remotely. You're seeing the sort of hybrid working become a major buzz out there. And this just kind of summarizes, I think, a really good sort of, where we started to where we are. You look at sort of March 2020, and that kind of sparked, the whole pandemic and the lockdown and the remote working revolution, to now where we are, where you actually see, a lot of articles and a lot of organizations, nationwide as an example, tells 13,000 staff to work anywhere. Most workers do not expect full-time office to return. So this is, really setting the scene and the foundation for products like this to be deployed to organizations. And, one of the key things that was always a big part of feedback was actually, a lot of organizations couldn't deploy Microsoft and then obviously get all the information they wanted out of it. And these are problems that we've aimed to solve with TeamsLink. So it's all things that you get to see here. So, this is just like interesting statistics that you can see. So, it's just showing you that, the amount of time and how many staff and organizations don't expect things to return to business as usual. And you're seeing all of that, the work-life balance and how you position the products and how you're securing things. That's a much bigger focus than it was previously. So, you can see the productivity, extra time taken up by commuting and all those things that people were most concerned about, and how they're eliminated in a hybrid working world, and how products like this can help enhance that. And of course, this just gives you some stats on obviously Microsoft Teams and the substantial growth that that's seen in what was, a very, very short amount of time. So, it has been the fastest growing sort of UCaaS product to ever hit the market. And, you even just look at it in terms of, revenue, where it was in 2017 to then where it hit in 2020. So, of course, where it is today in 2022. And that's evident by the substantial amount of traffic that's grown through that. If you look at sort of, in 2017 there was 2 million active users. Q2 in 2021 hit 145 million. And when the next element of statistics come out, obviously you're going to see substantial growth on that. So, the amount of meeting minutes that are going through Teams, the amount of organizations using Teams, the growth of that obviously speaks for itself. And with that comes, the constant innovation piece. The nice thing about our product in conjunction with Microsoft is we are very much working hand in hand. So, as Microsoft continues to develop Teams and adds features in, that's just a benefit. As we continue to develop and add features in, that's another benefit. So the nice thing is it truly is that great product made better, because we're working in conjunction with them, constantly making updates. We'll stay make updates. And you can see some of the big sort of changes that they've added in recently, and some of the stuff that we've added in as well. So, things like live captions and subtitles, dynamic mode, live events, pop-out chat, all that stuff's been included. But then alongside of that is some of the changes we've made. So, we have the ability to do live reporting with inclusive updated templates, that inbound geographical routing I mentioned, sentiment analysis, which is great, custom dashboards across solution, live in call transcription services. So, on the call recording, we can transcribe and into, I think it's about 60 plus languages at the moment as well. So all that can be done. Your payment options as well, through voice, through hyperlinks, all the things that we have built in, call whisper, multi-out dial, post survey feedback, so post call feedback, all this functionality we can add on and have inbuilt into Teams. And then, of course, things like a fully fledged omni-channel contact center. So you can see that as Microsoft make updates, we make updates that are very relevant to those things, and they work very, very well together. And of course, some of the roadmap highlights of things that have happened, been delivered, and constantly changing. Some of the recent ones that they've brought on. So, your 7x7 video pane happened quite quickly. Custom backgrounds, the raise hand and all the different functionality in breakout rooms they've now added into Teams meetings. And then, some of the stuff that they have on the roadmap as well being delivered. So there's a lot of functionality between the two products that work nicely together to give yourself and your end customers the full and immersive experience that they require. So I think that about sums it up for me. And thank you for joining today, everyone.